We have other things on down below. I'll get everything. Let me get the two hot seats going. There they are, ready to go. Okay, we call the meeting to order for October 21st. Motion the minutes. It's moved, it's seconded. All those in favor, contrary, carried. Next meeting is November 24th in this very room. And the first item on the agenda, I do want to add one, and that's just a motion to staff vis-a-vis the comments I made upstairs at the workshop regarding Leslie Road and Beckwith. And it's just a referral to staff, hopefully with no discussion, to come back to us later, if committee will support that. And we have one manager's report. Okay, the first item is the early review of the rezoning applications involving the major OCP amendment, one-year implementation review. We got Josh and Sarah. And Sarah, nice to see you again.
Thank you.
And Josh, always good to see you. All right, who's doing the talking?
Sarah will be.
Motions to receive for information. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted a brief introduction that, as you've noted, this is the early review of rezoning applications involving major OCP amendments. This is a report providing you, informational report providing you with a one-year implementation review. In the past year, we've had 2 applications go through this process. And as we move forward, staff will continue to monitor the types of applications, and should any changes to the program be warranted, the changes would be brought forward to Planning Committee and Council for consideration.
All right, any questions? Hang on, Alexa.
Thank you for the report. So we had 2 applications come forward. One was essentially withdrew because I think they didn't receive enough positive feedback, but did we receive any feedback from the applicants on that early procedure, how they felt about it? Because some of them may have had other projects that they've put through in other ways, and so they might be able to have a comment on the difference in the 2 systems.
My understanding is that both of the applicants were benefited from the opportunity to hear early feedback from Council.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Carol.
Thank you very much for the report. I do remember each one of these 2 cases, and they gave us an opportunity to have really active discussion and debate about the pros and cons of each one of the projects. And I do appreciate you renaming the smell test the early review process, because it does sound much more professional. But I have to say that I really think this is going to save time in the end, because rather than go through an entire procedure before you come to council, this will at least give the applicant an idea of whether or not there's a chance. What's your take on it?
It does provide that, Council was looking for that opportunity to have early input, and this process absolutely provides that opportunity for Council, and it does give applicants very early in the process an opportunity to hear directly from Council.
Yeah, I think this is how we can, as we move forward, we can hopefully, like the projects that aren't going to go through and they've gone through a whole process, they might waste a year, whereas this could significantly increase or decrease the timeline that it would take for various projects. So thank you for working with the applicants, and thank you for the report.
Okay, Michael, hang on. There you go.
Great, thanks. I just had a thought. Was there any projects that were close, like they weren't quite major enough? I don't know if you have any details on any that were maybe just missed the bar. And then also, we would hear early review if there's anything involving change of location of lands designated for park purposes. So I wonder would that also factor in, like if we had Steveston Park and we wanted to add a seniors complex or something to it, and it would be in a park that's currently parked, would that be triggered by this process?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, the process was intended to handle any rezoning applications that are making a fundamental change to the base land use as proposed. So the example that you provided, if it was already in like a city-owned park, the case would be if a rezoning application were on a land that was designated for parks purposes, that's when the application would come forward. So anything that requires a major OCP amendment or a change in the council approved land use would be forwarded to this committee for early input.
anything on your?
Thank you. Through your worship to Councillor Wolf, or through the chair to Councillor Wolf, there were no applications that kind of reached that bar. Again, it was only those that required an OCP amendment.
Okay. All right, the motion for receive for information. All those in favor, seconded. Thank you very much. It's carried. And our next item, only item on the business here is the referral responses pre-securities. We are part of it, the pilot project to be excluded, and we are to give first, second, and third reading on this. So anything to add to the wonderful report?
Nothing to add, Mr. Chair.
done.
I'd just like
Answer
to.
questions?
We'll be very happy to answer questions. I'd just like the opportunity to introduce Mr. Matthew Huck. He is our program manager for tree preservation.
Yeah, welcome. It's the first time I think you've come to us. Great. Okay, any questions? Seeing none, moved, seconded. All those in favor? Contrary, carried. Thank you very much. The next is a referral to staff, which I'll read for the record. Vis-a-vis previous discussions that we've had, which were very informal. Just for that motion, that staff be directed to investigate the merits and technical procedure for changing the OCP and urban village plan for the intended use of mixed use and high-density residential and rental in the areas bounded by Leicester Road, Hazelbush, Canby, and Brown Roads, and as well investigate change in the area bounded by Beckwith, Charles, Candaway, and Bridgeport. Staff to report back to the planning committee before the OCP, so we have a chance to discuss it. So I move that, seconded. Any comment? Move. All right, see, Carol, go.
Mr. Craig first, I think? Mr. Craig first?
Yes, thank you. Just wanted to comment with respect to the referral. Staff are happy to look into this matter. I do have to point out, though, that given the timeline of the OCP review, I do not see it being feasible for this to come back to Planning Committee before the OCP, given that the OCP currently would come before Council before the end of this year.
Okay. All right, Carol.
Thank you very much. That was pretty much what I was going to ask, because this is a large area, and just if staff could just correct me, right now it's zoned employment zoning, is that correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, yes, these two areas are currently designated non-residential in the city's official community plan. They're designated non-residential for a number of reasons, but we can elaborate those in a report should the referral proceed.
So I would think that the report will take into account, things like the airplane noise, the need for employment, and then look at what options we have for allowing for more residential or rental. Okay, good. Well,
Okay.
yeah, good.
Anybody else? Okay, all those in favor? Contrary, carried. All right, and then we have one manager's report. Welcome, Councillor Heath. Okay, you're on.
Thank you. Well, thanks for showing up for the manager's report. Appreciate it. I really just wanted to update committee that the provincial government is busy right now introducing new bills this fall, and one bill in particular has caught our attention. This is Bill 25. It's the Housing and Municipal Affairs Statutes Amendment Act, which is meant to support the implementation of zones that support small-scale multi-unit housing, or SHMU. If given royal assent, Bill 25 would amend the Local Government Act to enact the following. First, it would clarify the definition of SHMU to ensure that all zones that permit single-family and duplex housing also allow SHMU-type housing, that is multiplexes. And our new RSM zone does exactly that, so not too much of a concern. The second area is that it expands the list of provincial site standards that can be regulated, such as the amount of buildable area, number of buildings per lot, housing forms such as triplexes, row homes, and townhouses, and parking requirements. That part is a bit concerning, as this could further overreach, it could be further overreached by the province on zoning standards for SHMU. The province has indicated this would be based on monitoring, determine if overly restrictive site standards and excessive off-street parking requirements continue to serve as barriers to the viability of homes. So staff will monitor the aspects of Bill 25 closely and will report back when needed.
Okay, Carol has a question.
What percentage, you said that provincial sites would be subject to some of these other changes. What percentage of Richmond sites are provincial?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, I'm just.
Like you said,
making
that
some
provincial
clarifications.
sites, I'm assuming something like the WorkSafe property would be provincially controlled, no?
So through the chair to Councillor Day, so this bill will affect essentially our zoning of SHMU, or small-scale multi-unit housing, which is privately owned in most cases.
Yeah.
And it's essentially could override our zoning, which is the RSM zone, and could dictate, you know, the height of buildings, floor area, that type of thing, which typically a local government manages and regulates. So that's the area of specific concern. The other part of that bill was just regarding the definition of SHMU, and we're aligned with the province on that. There's other municipalities out there that perhaps haven't quite aligned their definition closely, so the province can come in and make amendments.
Okay, so the changes we made so far pretty much align with what Bill 25 is,
Correct. It's just some of the zoning standards that could be, we could be challenged on.
parking being the main issue. Okay, thank you.
Nicole, hang on, there you go.
There we go. The question to staff is, I just read an article about Burnaby making a change, cutting their permitted size and height of the new multiplex homes under SHMU. You nod, maybe you've read it. I just wonder how similar was theirs or is theirs now to ours?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Wolf, it's interesting you bring that up because the timing of that was interesting when this bill was introduced. For Burnaby, when they went ahead with the provincial guidelines pretty much as written, and I think what they've discovered with the first few building permits is that they're quite significantly larger than maybe what they expected. So my understanding is they're up to 4 stories in some cases. There's no floor area limit, and so they've now imposed some limits that feel are a bit more in concert with the neighborhood. I think for Richmond, I think the land use contract experience has basically prepared us for what is appropriate in Richmond neighborhoods.
Andy?
Thanks, and through the chair, thanks for the update. So when the province is assessing how much more they're going to dictate to cities what we have to do, when they're looking at Bill 25 and its impact, they are going to look at the totality of what's happening in a community, not just how many small multiplex units are being built, but the TOA areas, other aspects of development, because the small multi-unit houses, you know, might not end up being that attractive to people for various reasons. So they're not just going to look at that one thing and decide, oh, we need more powers and more things dictated to communities because not enough small multiplex units are being built. Whereas you might have a lot of units being built, for instance, in the center of Richmond, in the TOA area, or elsewhere with townhouses or rental apartment buildings. So they will look at that.
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, yes, absolutely. I mean, it's one part of the overall housing spectrum with SHMU, so they will be looking at the totality of it, would be my expectation.
And it's kind of interesting. I don't really think you can answer this question, but, you know, it makes me wonder why, if they have particular communities that are, you know, demonstrating a problem with adapting to Bill 44, 47, why wouldn't they sit down with those communities and deal with them one-on-one versus just passing another bill that applies to Williams Lake, Terrace, Richmond, and Vancouver, all the same? But I guess there's not an answer to that. No.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, I can't really comment on that. I know that they have been working more closely with certain municipalities, and really that's just through the media. But for now, I think we're okay at the moment.
Yeah, hopefully we can do that. Thanks.
Okay. Alexa?
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you for the report. So if I understand correctly, if they change our buildable area and increase our height, then even if you don't build a SMU, you just build a big single-family house, just the size you can build will be bigger
Through the chair to Councillor Liu, what I would expect is it would likely be related to if there's multiplex units, that you could have a larger home rather than providing an incentive to build a large single-family dwelling. But I quite honestly don't know what they would try to impose. And if they did impose any regulations, there would be a time limit on when we would bring in bylaws for council consideration. But that process is a bit unclear at the moment, and hopefully there's some clarity once this bill is given royal assent.
Okay, because under the current SMU, there's no limitation on the size of any particular unit in your SMU. So you could have one really large and a couple suites, or like, and I mean like bachelor suites, like single room suites.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Liu, there is limitations on the minimum size. As far as maximum size, it would work with the overall maximum size that's allowable for the dwelling per site, and that's based on a floor area ratio. But if on the allocation of space per unit is really up to the builder.
Okay, thank you. One more question or comment. It's my understanding that Burnaby had 2.0 FAR and Vancouver had 1, and we've got like 0.7 for ours. So Burnaby is essentially like 3 times bigger what they allow than we do. And notwithstanding they have basement space and, you know, different geography and everything else, but essentially they are allowing for 3 times bigger unit on the same piece of property than we are.
Through the chair to Councillor Liu, generally I would agree with that. They did not have an FAR limit, so they were probably seeing some homes built up maybe as high as 2. I know during the land use contract era, we were having homes built up to 1.2 FAR, which is obviously more than double than what typically is permitted. Burnaby is, of course, now introducing a new FAR limit for homes.
But the one thing about our land use contracts is, much as some people didn't like how boxy they were, they still had less coverage of the lot itself,
Through the
right?
chair to
So there
Councillor
was
Liu, in
more
some cases.
yard still.
Yeah, there was a variance.
Less encroachment onto the neighbors. So while they were, you know, as some people said, a big box, a 3-story box, it was compact and it wasn't spread all over the yard, right?
Through the chair to Councillor Liu, in most cases, yes, there was a variety of different site coverages, but generally speaking, it was a smaller site coverage in most cases.
Sorry.
If we were worried that the province was going to overlay something, you know, would it make sense to increase our FAR up to say like a 0.9 or so? Like, could we look at a reasonable incremental change that would still work within the neighborhoods and be a lot easier for people to accept and not look like we've neutralized the SMU? Because essentially all of our tweaks, we've more or less neutralized it. We've had, what, 100 applications to build?
Correct. Through the chair to Councillor Liu, what I would say with that is that I would hope that the province does at least approach us if there's concerns about our zoning regulations. We can certainly then take the opportunity to have consultation or discussions with neighborhoods to understand and measure the impacts that that additional density could have. One thing I would say is our current RSM zone is really a made in Richmond zone. That is to reflect that yet. We can't build basements. We don't have laneway network or an extensive network, and that it generally falls within I guess, historic regulations that have been in Richmond's neighborhoods. We understand that the envelope needs to be pushed a bit more, and we can have those discussions if there's pressure from the province.
Okay, and
Mr. Craig wants.
because like we didn't approve any of those at council, right? So I'm wondering if we could see some of the floor plans and finished products of the, you know, an example of some of the ones that have been built under our regulations. So we have a clear idea of what it is that we've approved and that's coming forward to the people of Richmond.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Mr. Craig? You're not.
Yes, thank you. Just to follow up on Mr. Hopkins' comments, staff continue to monitor the implementation of the RSM zone. We actually anticipate that you will receive a report proposing some minor adjustments to the RSM zone in the next month. Through our work, we'll continue to look at how we can manage the implementation of the zone, as John had alluded to. Should the province believe that our zoning is restrictive, we would expect that there would be a notification process and a period of time granted to the city before we were the province enacted any regulations overriding our zoning.
Okay. Any more? Alexa, any more? Oh. No, okay, any more from you? You're done, okay. Councillor Heath.
Just to carry on with the discussion, our FAR is 0.7, but are we leaving any room to negotiate with the developer on that to increase the FAR, FSR?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, what I can add to that is they're currently pre-zoned, the RSM zone. However, on areas along arterial roads where we would like to see townhouses, low-rise apartments in some cases, there's opportunity through rezoning to increase the FAR for those properties.
Okay, and what about row housing? I noticed that was in your,
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, same thing for row housing, which is encouraged on along arterial roads.
and we would look at increasing the FSR.
In those cases, yes.
Okay, now, is Burnaby not retracting their amount because they had such an outcry from the community?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, yes, that is correct. They had an outcry on the massing of some of the newer builds, and they have brought down some of the regulations with respect to height and floor area.
And I think there were some comments from our provincial counterparts there that they would be looking at having some arbitrary decision province-wide, but you're in tune to that. So the other part I want to delve into is parking. And we're all over the map. You know, Vancouver is going with a 52-floor tower. I think they're just debating that in council right now with no parking at all. Like, we would never go in anything like that. We're not forced to go in anything like that, I would surmise.
I'll let Mr.
Craig move forward.
Just easier for me to sit at the table, I think, given the discussion. Through the chair to Councillor Heed, the provincial bills that were introduced do pose some restrictions on the city. So within the transit-oriented areas, which is predominantly within 800 meters of a Canada Line station, the city cannot require any residential parking whatsoever, apart from accessible parking and loading. Outside of the city center, within the areas subject to the multiplex zoning or the SHMU as it's referred to, the city is prohibited from requiring any on-site parking on a frequent transit network. So under provincial regulations, yes, we are significantly precluded from imposing minimum parking regulations on new development.
So that applies to whether it's market sales or rental.
Within the TOA areas, yes. Within the areas outside of city center, we do have some flexibility because those would require site-specific rezoning applications.
Great. And SHMUs, we still limit the amount of spaces they have? We haven't wiped that out.
Outside of the frequent transit network, so I believe it's within 200 meters, 400 meters of a frequent transit network, we cannot impose any parking requirements. Outside of those, we do have reduced parking requirements, and we're continuing to monitor how that unfolds. When council considered the implementation, one of the ideas or the suggestions from staff is we may need to look at a residential permit parking program similar to what exists in other areas within the region.
Thank you.
Carol?
Wow. So the province can't, we are not allowed, because of the province, to impose any kind of parking requirements for those areas. But wouldn't the market impose that? I mean, who's going to want to move into a place where there's absolutely nowhere to park their car?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, I think you are correct. The market will dictate. We have not seen anyone to date propose a building with no parking. Generally, Richmond has a higher car ownership than most regions in the Lower Mainland, so the market does see a desire for that. Having said that, I think it's only a matter of time before we start to see proposals with very restricted amounts of parking.
And those buildings will likely sit empty. Thank you.
Just quickly following up on Councillor Liu's comments, when will we get to see some of those diagrams with regard to FAR?
Through the chair,
When
we
could that
will.
be done?
To date, I don't believe we've had any of the multiplexes complete to occupancy. We are seeing generally, the trend is about 40% of new construction is in a duplex to fourplex form. Generally, it's a duplex with a suite on each side of the duplex. We can definitely provide further information as those buildings start to complete.
Yeah, I think it'd be key. The other question following her comment was that where we start with our FAR and others are going beyond that, you kind of indicated we didn't want to go, but if this council wanted to change that and to say instead of it's 0.6, and having looked at with your workshop, we said we're going to start the base at 0.9 or whatever, depending where it is. Are we going to get a chance to look at that?
Well, through the chair, of course, zoning is within council's prerogative. We're here to take direction. We would suggest that in terms of looking at any future changes to the RSM zone or the multiplex zoning, especially as it relates to FAR, I would suggest that first order of business should be adopting a revised OCP. The revised OCP is intended to direct development and the form of development to areas which would put planning control back into the city. So densifying within areas that can be well served by transit. The other thing I would point out with respect to FAR specifically is essentially this form of housing is being dictated within areas which have typically been low-density residential development, and the site services within those areas, the water, the sewer, and the drainage, do need to be sized appropriately. And we would suggest that you'd want to undertake a very detailed technical servicing analysis and have a plan for how those services can be sized to accommodate that type of development.
Now, just quickly with the OCP, is it your intention to bring it to a GP or to planning committee first?
To the chair, to GP is the instructions, yes.
My suggestion also as well, given what I think is that be the only item on a GP and it be a special GP. So we can have very, very thorough discussion of the OCP and we can make sure we're doing that as opposed to rushing it through before 7 o'clock or 7:30 or whenever we're going to be. That would just be my suggestion to staff and also to committee to have that thorough investigation.
Through the chair, we'll do what we can with respect to that. Obviously, we are trying to bring this forward in accordance with provincial legislation, which does dictate that it's considered by council before the end of this year, but we can definitely see what we can do.
Whenever you bring it forward, that be done and on it. I think too often we're rushed for important things, and obviously we've got a little reading to do. Okay, anything else? Good discussion around the table? Okay, thank you very much for the report and the update. Motion to adjourn? We're adjourned. Thank you.